Call this meeting of the MPTA Board of Trustees to order. Welcome, everybody. I am David Howard. I get the pleasure of trying to guide us tonight. And with that, I will ask us to start with introductions, just a little different from before. In order to get us to that point that we started at the retreat where we feel like one body instead of where we were appointed from, we're going to ask you just to introduce yourself and the title that you hold on this board, not where you're appointed from, just so we can get used to it, all right? So why don't we start with you?
Alicia Stedman.
Good evening, Mike Bryant.
Clayton Seeley, trustee.
Good evening, Dwayne Walker.
Bob Menzel.
I'm Charles Bowman.
Cameron Pruitt. Fred Thomas, Cast League Council.
Frank Emery. Vice Chair.
Christy Long, Board Secretary.
Justin Harlow.
Ken Shore.
Jocelyn Jones-Nolly.
Brad Simmons.
Matt Walt.
Corinne Mack. Corinne Mack, sorry.
Excuse me. Wyatt Dixon.
T. Anthony Lindsay.
Dana Sujanki.
Brent Cagle, interim CEO.
Katz.
All right, with that, we should get used to the next set of comments that I'm going to make because this becomes what I need to do every meeting, and that is housekeeping. For tonight's meeting, members of the public may access and view the meeting on the Gov channel or on the Gov channel on YouTube, Cat's YouTube channel, or on Spectrum Cable channel 16. We're all over the place. The agenda and meeting materials for this meeting, tonight's meeting, were posted on our website, mpta.com. As we proceed, so that we maintain accurate records, I would ask all trustees to please identify yourself by name before speaking and making motions. Please turn on the microphone at the table before speaking. Ensure that every member has an opportunity to speak. Please limit your comments as much as possible to 3 minutes. Yeah, and those are the rules. All right, so let's keep going. No recognitions tonight. I'm also going to start reading an ethics statement, and that is, in our rules of procedure, we agree that each meeting would include a reminder of the MPTA's Code of Ethics and Conflict of Interest Policy, which we don't have yet, but hopefully we will tonight. The Code of Ethics and the Conflict of Interest Policy is on the agenda, will be on the agenda after this evening, until we formally adopt the document. So it's there already, Emily? It says, okay, I'm not sure which one it is. It's there. If it's not there, it will be there. Trustees should conduct themselves according to the principles of ethics and integrity set forth in the draft. So the draft document is on there. Okay. All right, so now we're at number 4, which is public comment. And I believe we have 3 public comment speakers. So I ask the speakers, when I call you up to come to the podium, you have 3 minutes to speak. At the conclusion of the last speaker on the list, we'll see if there's any additional speakers. All right, so first person up tonight. In fact, we had 1 or 2 more people, 1 more person join the table, do introductions.
Hello, Katrina Young, appointee, City of Charlotte.
Thank you. So first up is Stephen Saucer. Saucier. Going once. Going twice. Not here. Okay. Next up we have Garland Green. If you come over to the podium. Yep. To the podium, you have 3 minutes, sir. And please remember, we're taking in information. If you have a clarifying question, ask, but we're not going to go back and forth, if that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Garland. Mr. Green, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name's Garland Green. I live in South Charlotte. I'm going to try to talk fast. I only have 3 minutes, and I'm sure won't cover everything that I want. You might ask yourself why I'm up here. The reason I'm up here is I care. And things that are really important to me is public input, frugal spending, and accountability. I hope you feel the same way. I want to congratulate you on getting through the bylaws, the rules and procedures, and indemnity issues. So this brings us to where are we right now? And that's what I want to talk about, you a little bit. The payback, just to refresh your memory, passed by the slimmest of margins, 7,800 votes in a county of 1 million people. So it was very controversial. What is the certainties of the payback? The certainties of the payback is we're going to have a 1% sales tax increase. The certainties of the payback is we're going to build the red line. Everything else other than that is up to you, okay? I want to talk a little about CATS 101. I've known Brett for a long time, and I'm not wanting to talk down Brett, but the truth of the matter, I look at CATS 101. I've heard the presentation for 2 years, and I kind of see it personally as Brent's wish list. He was using it as sales to get the vote for the 1% sales tax. He's pitched it to you several times. Please just remember, at the end of the day, you are the decision makers. Some concerns that I want you to think about. One having to do with light rail. CATS did a survey of 1,500 people. That's probably, in my opinion, the most credible information they had. And the results of the survey is the public wanted, number one, to go to the airport. They wanted, number two, to go to Matthews. Number three, they wanted to go to Davison, and they didn't care very much about the goal lines of going to Pineville. So what was the city pushing? The red line. Why? Because they had an $83 million investment in it. Ridership projections. That's been a black hole. Somebody at this meeting asked about ridership projections. How can you make any determination on light rail without ridership projections? And then here's the big question in Charlotte. How do you get from the proposed airport terminal to the airport? That needs to be determined before any money is spent on it. It needs to be approved by the airport authority, and it right now it's just mostly a talk around. Busing, and I'll try to move fast. We're talking about increasing the route frequency to get more riders, significantly more riders. That needs to be looked at as an ROI. That needs to be vetted. If it doesn't deliver significant more riders, is it just a nice to have or not? And one last thing on roads, if I may have another 10 seconds, we have 150 people moving to the city every day. That's 20 more thousand cars. Bike pass, what have you. The number one priority should be to open up the roads. Thank you so much.
More than happy to send it to everybody. Just want to be fair to everybody. Thank you so much. Love seeing you come out. Thank you for coming out to support us. Last up is Carson Cone. Mr. Cone, welcome back.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight regarding the original CATS Fair study. I did interpret it to have a great number of improvement suggestions. I am not, though, up to date on where the study stands because the February Public Transit Advisory Committee meeting either did not occur or was not published on YouTube. I want to go back, though, to two of the FAIR study's original recommendations that I brought up last meeting. Number one, if those paying cash would be required to pay double for transfers, it will directly discriminate against refugees for the duration of the program's existence, and that is regardless of where in the world those refugees may come from. This is because In all likelihood, refugees will arrive suddenly without bank accounts and quite likely without a grasp of the English language to know how to reload a card at a machine. Their immediate understanding would more likely be of how the U.S. money system works. I ask that cash-paying transit riders always be allowed, as they currently are, to not have to pay double for a transfer. The second and final issue that I bring up is I got a minute 33. The second and final issue that I bring up is the lack of a full voucher in the Fair Study's original recommendation. Before addressing that, if I am not mistaken, in the proposed bylaws, you all would not receive compensation for membership on the board, and so you would serve in the noble role for which I have tremendous respect as a volunteer for your community. In representing your entire communities, I don't think that any community would have 0% of people without money. Therefore, I have hope that the board will vote for a full voucher for FNS/food stamp eligible recipients. I too have very high hopes that no one in here would want to walk outside in the elements for an hour because they can't afford public transit, especially while the windshield would be 20 degrees Fahrenheit in January or the temperature 100 degrees in July. With food stamps, for example, no resident is told that they must pay half the cost of a loaf of bread. That's because they then might be unable to get that bread. So why would the same standard not apply to public transit? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And by the way, everybody, there is food. There will be food anyway. What we're doing is kind of splitting the meeting up because we intend to have a deep dive on the budget tonight because we're kind of jumping into the budget process as of right now. So we're going to get through this. We'll stop to go eat, and then we'll come back and do the budget presentation, okay? All right, so we are going to feed you. All right, so there are no public hearings, no advisory board meetings, reports. We also will get a report from the Bylaws Ad Hoc Committee under Board Committee Updates. We're just going through the process here of keeping the agenda consistent. So the next item is number 8, which is consent items. This is the first time you've seen it like this. This is a way for us to deal with things that come up all the time so we can just move through them. If you watch City Council or County Commission, they normally have a consent agenda. So under the consent agenda tonight are the minutes from our last meeting as well as from the workshop on the 20th. Can I get a motion to approve both items? Been moved
Simmons,
by
second.
Justin and second by somebody over here, by Mr. Simmons. So any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. So as you see in the future, get used to seeing it this way because we'll have a consent agenda. In the future, if you have a concern about anything on the consent agenda, let me or Emily know, and we will pull it so we can have discussion on it, okay? All right, let's keep moving. No presentations tonight, so that pulls us all the way down to number 7. Number 7 is a report out from the Bylaws Committee on the last piece of business that body had, and that's looking at the Code of Ethics and the Conflict of Interest. I'm going to turn it over to the guys from Robinson Bradshaw, just in case there are a few comments. Frank, you want to say anything before I do that?
No, please proceed.
Okay. So return to James, if you introduce yourself.
Great, thank you. James Cass, Robinson Bradshaw. So as Chair Howard mentioned, the action item here tonight is about the Code of Ethics and the Conflict of Interest Policy. Just as a quick recap where we stand on that, the initial version of the document was presented to the board in January. We received written comments, I believe, from 5 trustees. We synthesized those written comments for a revised draft, which was presented to the Bylaws Committee on February 24th. After the work on the bylaws had been done, we moved to the Code of Ethics. There was discussion about the revised draft at both the February 24th and March 4th meeting of the Bylaws Committee. And then on March 4th, the ad hoc committee, the Bylaws Committee, supported removal of one piece of the Code of Ethics and Conflict of Interest Policy to put it into a separate document that would relate to the process for determining a conflict of interest. So that has been moved out of the conflict of interest policy draft that you have in front of you. And the ad hoc committee supported or unanimously recommended for approval the conflict of interest policy with that caveat. So that's what's reflected in the draft ahead of you.
So maybe the first step is to see if we have a motion, and then we can have discussion on it. So is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the Bylaws Committee?
David Longo, so moved. Second.
Moved by David, seconded by Clayton. So questions on the policy? Oh, okay, I was going to say, man, I was going to get happy.
Not that time of day yet.
That was too easy. Yes, Ms.
Lindsay,
Well, but let's follow the way we've been doing. Anybody before I give it to Anthony?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Mr. Lindsay.
I have 4 comments. First one on Section 2 on the Code of Ethics. In the Code of Ethics, we specifically call out trustees and key employees. In our bylaws, we also say that the Code of Ethics would apply to committee members, which appears to include advisory committees. So I want to be clear as to whether or not this Code of Ethics applies to advisory committee members.
First question?
All right. So let me, since I only got 3 minutes, you want me to go through all of mine so I can?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that's the that's the first one. The next one is in Section 5, the very beginning, on the general designate or general, I guess, definition.
Yes, sir.
We say in this absolutely that no trustee or key employee should participate who has a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest. And it's an absolute statement. And my concern is that there will be times where there is definitely an appearance of conflict and perhaps a conflict, but the board determines that that does not rise to the level of necessarily recusing the person. And I want to make sure that this provides the board the latitude to make that decision, to say that we acknowledge that this person might have the appearance of a conflict or a conflict, but it does not rise to the level of recusing that person. And in 5B, we've outlined, and I think James mentioned this, we've outlined that we're going to have a separate process for determining when a conflict of interest exists. My question is, what do we do in the interim if someone has a conflict? How do we agree as a board that will be addressed? And we should do that so that everybody kind of understands. 5.4, on this one, I'm sorry, 5.1C, not 5.4. 5.1C is the next one. We have removed the reference to trustees, and this is regarding the duty to disclose. I understand we're going to have a process for determining, but it seems that we should still require that every board member, every trustee, still has the duty to disclose immediately upon determining or believing that they might be in a situation that would conflict them. So I would encourage us to go back to including the trustees as well as the key employees in item number C. And the reason that I think this is important for us in this whole section on Section 5 is that for those trustees who may be employed by other units of local government, which would be impacted by decisions that we make, there certainly could easily be an appearance of conflict, and I would not want us to automatically exclude those members if that does not rise to a level that we believe is truly material. So those are my main comments.
James or Adam? I think advisory is just yes, it does. And I think that on duty to disclose, that was about employees, but it's still in there for trustees. But I'll let you answer all 4 of those. So the first one was advisory bodies.
Right. So the answer to that, as Trustee Lindsay pointed out, is that the bylaws do apply the conflict of interest policy to members of the advisory committees. So the answer to that is yes. I don't have objections to clarifying language if we were to entertain that, but the answer is yes. The second question about the latitude for the board to determine that that recusal is not necessary, notwithstanding a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest. You'll see that that is written as a should not participate. It is not written as a shall not participate. So the intent there is that it would be covered in the process wherever a determination, whoever it is that makes the determination about the existence of the conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest, that can be set forth more clearly or more definitively, I should say, in the process document.
Let me take on 3, and you can go on to the last one. Yeah. Duty to disclose.
Right. So the duty to disclose, again, we viewed that more as a process item, not that this document, should be read to say that there is not a duty to disclose, but because there was significant discussion at the bylaws committee about the process for determining, evaluating, I should say, conflicts of interest for trustees, we had conceived of the duty to disclose as being part of the process document as well.
So on the third item, if you notice, the one thing that changed from the last document was us talking about not trying to clarify or put a quantity on material when it comes to conflicts. We went the direction of saying it'll be a process. So you still disclose, you still can seek opinions, and you'll go through a process that we have yet to determine. So that's what he's talking about, because he said it on the meetings, is that we very much need to put a process in place in case something happens soon. So it is top of mind, Mr. Lindsay, just so you know. It'll be on the agenda for the executive committee, and hopefully we'll bring back some language that makes some sense at a recommendation of the attorneys. But I just ask you, don't put us in that situation right now, please.
Well, I'm just saying that.
I'm talking about anybody.
Yeah, but the body needs to be clear about how it would be handled. So if someone finds themselves in that situation, what should they do? And I think that's a real issue, especially as we get more into committee work.
I could not agree. I could not agree more. But just know that the intent is to bring it as soon as absolutely possible.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of, yes, sir, Mr. Dixon.
Thank you. Wyatt Dixon. So I have two questions. First, I'd like to direct to, I believe it's 3.6 about ethics education, and this is really just a clarifying question. The language as written states that we will develop an ethics education program, which is excellent. One of the things that occurred to me serving on a state board is the state has an excellent system for doing that with ethics education and things like that. And I just wanted to make sure that at our option in the future date, we could potentially adopt that as opposed to having to spend potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars going through the whole exercise of creating a whole new process when there's something that we could latch onto. And
What else you got?
And second question, bear with me a second here, is up to definitions. Bear with me. It related to, and I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through my notes and I don't, hang on. This is in, what is this tied to? I'm sorry, my note got out of whack with the actual piece. What section has the, perhaps it's the interest piece, that's it. I just had a question since we were talking about material and materiality relative to the other item. One of the things that we talk about here is material, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the process that we would go through in terms of standards of control, whether it's ownership percentage, managerial control, or what's described as material economic impact, just given the ambiguity of that term. So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Great. So with respect to the first question about the ethics education program, yeah, from our perspective, there's nothing in the Code of Ethics and Conflict of Interest policy as drafted that would preclude the body from essentially piggybacking on the state program. That sounds like a great idea to the extent that that is a program that is consistent with what the board wants. So there's nothing in the draft that would stop you from doing that. And then to your second point on the certainty around material and how that would be measured or determined. I believe that probably relates most closely back to Chair Howard's comments about looking for specificity in this document relative to in the process document. We would envision that the process document will talk about any of those important considerations that the board wishes to try to strictly define, whether it be ownership or some other standard. I think that would be the appropriate place for how to determine it. And we found in the bylaws committee, that trying to put more specificity around it in this document really just kind of bogged the whole document down.
Sure. Okay, thank you. To the extent that you might have some clarifying language about us not having to develop a system and a program in this, develop or adopt an existing system, that might be worthwhile if everyone agrees.
So as you know, I mentioned because I sat and went through that state process many times, I'd love to see if we can. In fact, Brandon and I were just talking about seeing the training that they have at the state is set up for state bodies, which is different from local.
Right.
But we could still talk to them about if they could adopt something for us. Who knows? So I think it's good on this and disclosure, to be honest with you. So. Okay.
Just the question was about the optionality in the future for us to do that, as long as we're not precluded.
Could not agree more.
Yeah, if you did want clarity, you could change the word develop to adopt. I think would that satisfy?
Sure.
Yeah. So, that would be something for y'all to consider.
Are you asking for that?
If our council believes it's unnecessary, I'm willing to sit on my hands, so.
I think that it's clear as written that you could develop a process by essentially just adopting an existing process. Yeah.
All right. No other questions? All in favor of adopting a code of ethics and a conflict of interest policy? Let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign. We have just finished all of our foundational documents. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you to the Bylaws Committee for all of your hard work. I know I told you it was going to be 2 meetings, and it wound up being, I don't know, more than that. 20 or something? I don't know. But thank you for your hard work. I appreciate everybody's diligence on getting this done. Thank you, Robinson Bradshaw, for your steady hand through this process, both Adam and James. All right. With that, report outs. So now I'll turn it over to Britt for his report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Howard, and good evening to the rest of the trustees. I will keep my report brief tonight. One reminder is that related to emails, your RIDE MPTA board emails are now established. If you're having trouble accessing those, we do have some tech folks, and we can always help you if you give us a call and work that out. The other thing is, unless otherwise noted with us, we will only be sending information directly to you on behalf or related to the board to your RIDE MPTA board email. If you would prefer that those be directed to a different email, please let us know directly, and we can also accommodate that.
And that is as of today, everybody. So if you're not good, go see the tech people, please.
Yep. And if you're wondering why you're not getting emails from us, go to your RIDE MPTA board email, because I assure you, you likely are getting many emails from us. Okay. March 18th is right around the corner. It is Transit Employee Appreciation Day. So hopefully everyone has a chance to say thank you to all of the employees who provide excellent transit service every day in Charlotte. They really are wonderful. They don't get enough thank yous, and so please help us reach out and thank them for their service on March 18th and every other day if you'd like to do that as well. They would appreciate it. I have a quick update about the South End Station. The South End Station is moving forward. There has been some requests related to the cost, media requests related to the cost of the South End Station. The South End Station is estimated to cost somewhere around $35 million all in. That is higher than we had originally anticipated. I will note that one of the key elements that made that station more expensive is as we went through design on the station and the technical specifications of the station, about $10 million is attributable in that project to what we call a track crossover, and that is track work that allows trains to cross over from one side to the other. That is an operational thing that is very much needed to ensure efficient and effective operations, but that was not something that was originally considered, and that is a significant cost. The station itself is about $25 million of the total project cost. I'm also happy to announce that on Monday night, the City Council approved an amendment to the contract for the red line design. It is about a $35 million contract. It will cover red line design, taking design to 30%, and cover the cost of the environmental process that is necessary associated with the red line. This is a major step, and we are ready to get started with that contract. With that, that is the end of my comments.
And just because we had a few, yes, sir.
Just wanted to know if, is there any update on the FTA audit? Brett, can you talk to us about that, where we are?
Yes, so we have provided our draft responses to the FTA. So I think last time we were together, I mentioned that we had 30 days to provide the draft responses. We have done that. The FTA now has up to 30 days to accept or comment on those responses. And once that is complete, we will have a complete audit with accepted responses and corrective actions, and we will report that to the board as soon as we have the final responses from the FTA.
Just to follow up, do their responses typically impose any kind of timeline or deadline for carrying out the steps that we propose to take to resolve the audit issues?
They can, yes. And our responses also include timelines and deadlines. And so it could be a combination of two things. One, the FTA saying we would like a timeline on this, or we would like corrected or a faster timeline.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Just for the good of the public and those who may be watching, the red line design, as part of that process, you are looking at potential additional stops in other places in Charlotte as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great question. So taking it to 30% design, there's two processes at play, and actually Council Member Johnson asked me this question Monday night, so I will give you a similar answer. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I'll try to paraphrase. The process to finalize the station locations is what we call finalizing the locally preferred alternative, or LPA. And as we get into design, we will be bringing forward final recommendations on the LPA. So that is part of design, and then it's handled formally through a separate process, which is adopting the formal locally preferred alternative. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I get that question a lot, so thank you for that, Cameron. Yes.
Mr. Chair, that was actually my question, one of my two questions. The other question was a clarity on the South End I assume the budget was you said it was 35 million. Was the original budget 10 million less because of the crossroad?
Yeah, I apologize. The original budget was less than 35 million. I will need to get you a final answer on, was it 25 million? There are several factors, but the primary factor is the crossover, and I can get you all of the original budget plus the additional costs.
Just so you know, there's a presentation from their public meeting that I actually watched on the YouTube channel if you want to learn more about it. Matter of fact, why don't we send that to the committee if we could, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Link to it. And yes, Clayton.
I'm assuming South End Station construction is going to require single tracking for the duration of the project. Are there implications for frequency of trains? I know we were trying to get to a point of having trains coming more often. Is there implications there?
Yes, so we can get you a detailed answer, but generally speaking, to your two questions, yes and yes. There will be construction impacts. It will affect service. And yes, there will be significant periods of single tracking because of the nature of the work. And happy to share more details on the exact construction impacts that we anticipate throughout the project, but it is a major project and it will have service impacts while we're completing the work.
Any other questions? Yes, Dana.
Dana Stujanki, question for you is, for the red line, I know that you all applied for a grant through FTA for some of those dollars at 30 million that you're seeking. Is that additional cost, or what that grant is paying for compared to what the city approved?
Yeah, so I can get you the final answer. It's not, the $30 million for the grant is not additional dollars to the project, but it would be federal funding towards the project cost. Oh, got it.
I'll just add to that. Yes, it would just offset, would be part of that contract amount. So it should be offset the local funds that would be committed under the HDR contract.
So it's 30 million. If we got the federal dollars, then is the total cost 60 million, or is it 30, or is it only like 6 to the city and 30 would be underwritten by the grant?
Yeah, the total, the contract amendment, I believe, was 37 million authorized. So it'd be 15 of the 37 would be paid by the federal grant.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Lindsay.
Yeah, while we're talking about red line, I just want to make a comment. I was at a community meeting recently, and this issue came up about the name of the red line. And I don't know if you all have heard this before. I see you shaking your head. So other folks have heard that the historical negative connotation associated with redlining. And so I just want to make sure that we all kind of are thinking about that as we continue to work.
Why look surprised? It was a big deal during the referendum.
Yes, sir. Not just during the referendum. That through community engagement, we have heard that specifically for many years. And what I would say is right now, for planning purposes, we have a red line. Before we open commuter rail to the north part of the county, this body will absolutely be asked to weigh in on naming of the commuter service.
All right, just so everybody knows, we're talking the same thing. Because the commuter rail is going through some historically underserved communities, the idea of calling it the red line, given that redlining was a lot of the reasons why people couldn't live in those communities, is something that people brought up. So that's what that's all about, just FYI.
Fair.
All right, anything else for him? We're moving right on along. We're going to get to eat here soon. So the next thing up is other business, and that is the chair's report. I'll start off by letting you know that I want to particularly thank the officers for sticking with us while we were doing the bylaws and the foundational documents. Your input was invaluable the whole time, and your guidance. But specifically, I want to thank you, Frank, for helping guide us to Robinson Bradshaw and getting us the right people to help with that. Also, I just need you to know that we're hard at work. In fact, we're going to talk about budget stuff. So, Ned, if you want to talk about that before we open it up, I'll give it to you then. And then just thanking you, Christy, for your hard work on this selection committee. I know you guys had your first meeting today, so looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. For me, I also want to thank again, I know we've done it 20 times, but thank again the staff and our consultant, D'Alva Arnold, who's over in the corner, for their hard work on the retreats. I don't know about you, but they've been extremely productive for us. So again, thank you. We're looking forward to the next one coming up on the 24th. I also want to tell you that, and you're hearing in the budget conversations, we're getting ready for the money that's going to come from the transit tax. The officers in the city and future, in the next call, the county, we've been talking to the Department of Revenue at the state, trying to get our hands around what's coming at us. You know, I said it at the retreat, and I'll say it again. It's not a freight train; it's a freight liner. It's $80 billion a quarter. That's over 200, almost $250 million a year that we're going to be responsible for. So it's very important to us about when it starts to come, how it starts to flow, what our responsibilities are with it. So we started those conversations, and I wanted you to know that they're going well. And again, just getting ready for it. Any questions about Department of Revenue? I don't want to skip over that because that's an important one. We're going to keep having conversations, and I'll keep giving you reports on it, okay? The next thing I wanted to... Question. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Bob Menzel. Just so that the board knows, I'm not sure that everybody's aware or not, but the Department of Revenue has published that they are going to begin collecting the tax on July the 1st.
I guess I should have said that part. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty important. And they have actually sent out, as of last week, 300,000 mailings to businesses within Mecklenburg County, advising them that they'll need to begin collecting the tax.
The most important thing on that to know is that, because we were worried about whether or not we were going to be ready, they were going to be ready, and that's why we're meeting, because we want to assure that if something changes, we know how to adjust from a budgeting standpoint and, you know, policy, process standpoint. But the most important thing is we're having the conversation. We thought it was only about Mecklenburg County. We learned that it's not just Mecklenburg. It's anybody who actually buys something in Mecklenburg. So they have to set it up across the state, just so that everybody's ready. It's not just Mecklenburg. So they're hard at work trying to get that done. So if you see somebody from the Department of Revenue, be nice to them, all right? In fact, the other person to be nice to now that I look at him is Michael Bryant, because when it comes into him, he has to distribute it out. So, yeah, thank you, Michael. Just so you know, a few of you guys know that one of the things that I've been pushing off kind of public engagement because I wanted us to get ourselves together, but it was very clear we need to start talking. So I started some very quiet meetings, attending the meetings of the appointing bodies in the county. In fact, I've been to 4. I went to Cornelius, Davidson, Huntersville, and Matthews last night. I'm going to Mint Hill tomorrow. And as you know, each member that was appointed from that body, I've asked you to attend with me, and everybody's done it so far. Again, it's just to go say, hello, we're here. We want to open the lines of communication. If you got a problem, if you got an issue, call me. Just staying around, not a lot of interaction. I told them the goal for me, at least as chair, is to set up something where we're talking to them every 2 months. I mean, every 2 months, God no, twice a year. So I told them that we'd be back before the end of the year to maybe sign up to actually give a report on where we are. So that's what I'd like to do. And if you guys okay with that, I think we need to keep the lines open. I've learned that one way to keep people from fussing at you is to go talk to them. So we're going to head that off. And then the last thing I'll share is that one more thing. I actually asked the staff to put an editorial in your packet that former mayor and former Secretary of Transportation Anthony Fox wrote a few months ago. It was good for me. It's a good counsel on how we should proceed. So I would love it if you take a few minutes just to read it. And then the last thing, as you know, last night sent out committee appointments. I'd like to welcome Alicia, Julie, and Michael to executive committee. I look forward to working with you guys, and you guys give them your best as we get going. We got a lot of hard work in front of us, and they're going to need it as we move forward. So with that, any questions of me on anything I've spoke about? All right. So next up is that we get to stop for 15 minutes to go grab food. If you will go get it and come back, we're going to kind of work while we're eating, if that's okay. All right? Thank you all. 15 minutes starting now. All right, it's going to be a working dinner. Hey, before we go, did you guys see these white books that just got laid out for you? Oh, I'm sorry. Everybody, you're going to get a white book. It's actually our new code of ethics and conflict of interest policy. As Frank just told me, I need you to keep this right beside your Bible, all right? So you'll get a copy of this so you can have it handy if you have anything. And yes, we'll do something for the process too, Mr. Lindsay, before you even ask. All right, so next up, we're actually going to get a presentation on the budget. And I'm going to turn it over to Brent to set it up, and then I'll let him hand it off to Chad.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Chad Howell, our CAT CFO, will be presenting tonight on public transit budgeting. What we wanted to do tonight, so this is not the start, this is the start of the budget conversation, but this is not a deep dive into all the numbers. This is really setting the table as we start to move into budget season and start to get into all of the numbers, I believe, ultimately with the Finance Committee, as well as with the Executive Committee, and then ultimately to the full MPTA. It is a process, and we will be going through it together. And so tonight is really just about setting the table for how our budgets work and, in general, the public sector budgeting process that we have in front of us. Chad, please.
Thanks, Brent. Good afternoon, Chairman Howard, Executive Committee members, and trustees. My name, as Brent said, is Chad Howell. I'm the CAT's Chief Financial Officer, and you're going to get to know me pretty well over the next few months. We have a busy schedule going from now until June, which is adoption. We'll get into that in a little bit and some slides later on. And you're going to see a lot of what's going to appear to be this year, look, another chart, look, a diagram. So before we get into those, I thought I would start with a story which is very relevant to tonight's presentation. So got to imagine way back, this is like probably 1996. So a long time ago, different times. I just finished my first semester of graduate school, and I went back and was working during Christmas at this little small family-owned textile mill that I used to work at some in the summers during Christmas break to make a little extra money for school. And some of the folks that I'd worked with there throughout the recent past were excited to hear about my first semester of grad school. So I told them several of the things we had learned. One of the classes we had taken was public budgeting. And they said, well, describe that to us. And so I did. And one of them looked at me and she says, wow, you had to go to grad school for that? I learned that. My parents taught me that, and I do that around my house every day now, right? And, 23-year-old Chad was like, whoa, I'm not sure about that. 54-year-old Chad, 27 years into this, she had a point. There's a lot of things that are very similar to the budgets that you all are going to see, but there are also quite a bit of differences in that, and those you'll start seeing those as we get into those tonight. So over my 2+ decades of work in local government budgeting, particularly most of it in budgeting, I will say that transit budgets as a whole, not just saying CATs, but transit budgets as a whole are fairly complicated compared to some of the others. They are publicly funded, they're asset intensive, we've touched on those, and where fares, the income, the revenues that we have the most control over, only pay for a small portion of the total cost, be it operating or capital. And you saw this as we were talking earlier about the percentage of the grant, right? So we rely on a layered local, state, and federal funding. Manages long-term assets. Some of our assets have lifespans of 50 years. They're very maintenance and they require a lot of maintenance to maintain. And as a result, transit finance must balance service, resiliency, and public policy goals within a complex and economically sensitive funding structure. Again, we have to be very conscious, or not again, but you've heard this from others, but for me, we have to be very conscious of what we set our fares at, because if we set them too high, people simply will not be able to avail themselves of our service, and we're actually not having the impact that we would want. Broadly today, we're going to touch on four topics. Better understanding our budget structure. For example, we'll talk about revenues, our operating budget, capital budget, and debt service. The roles of staff, the CEO, and the roles of the Board of Trustees. Explain how our funding works. We'll talk some about, the different categories of our revenue and how that flows over into our expenditures. And what happens to better understand the risks, what can happen if funding isn't provided for a period of time, and the cost of the trade-offs that inevitably may be needed as we balance the budget. So what are your responsibilities as an MPA trustee? You're approving the annual budget. You're ensuring our financial stability, aligning funding with strategic priorities, and meeting federal, state oversight requirements. And you'll see this later on. We approve a budget every year. Our operating budget typically is for one fiscal year, July 1 through June 30. Our capital budget, you typically approve 1 year of that as well, but you will see it presented over a 5-year period. And so it's a rolling 5 years. With the meeting federal and state oversight requirements, when we're audited, which we are regularly, if not every year, certainly no more than every 3, it's called the triennial audit. As it was described to me when I first came to CATS years ago, it's an inch deep and a mile wide of the organization. But a lot of those, when they come in and they look at that, part of what they audit is our own policies and procedures. And so if there's something that should have been brought before before the trustees to approve, they're looking to see that it has. And so part of that will be part of your oversight requirements and to ensure that we're ready for those audits. Governance. You are governed by the governance of this is by the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. I have a handy-dandy little book of that. I don't think they print these anymore. Everything's digital now, but we did provide a digital copy of it last Friday in your pre-reads for last Friday, and it covers the exact same thing as this bound copy does. Again, the fiscal year that we will be presenting to you is for July 1 through June 30. That it must be adopted by June 30 of each year. There's a public hearing and a budget ordinance that's required as part of that. And your fiduciary duty is, again, in North Carolina. It's not true in every state, but in North Carolina, we have a balanced budget requirement. And so what you will see presented by staff our revenues and our expenditures will balance to 0 at the bottom. That is required, and that is the way that we will bring it to you. It must be compliance with federal grant rules, and it must be focused on long-term sustainability. So what are the roles? Let me kind of simplify a little bit. With staff, that we'll be putting together the budget for presentation to the CEO and to the Board of Trustees. Staff starts on the budget, so we talked about that it's going to be adopted in June. We actually start working on the budget from a staff standpoint the prior September. So it's a long process. And that will typically the budget team takes it in the beginning. They assemble the budget. It is a whole of organization effort. Every department and division is involved. And we take their budget, we compile it, we will bring it in front of the CEO around December or January, give or take. The CEO typically, or Brent, again, will look at it and ensure that it is tracking with what the trustees' expectations are. If we established like your vision and values and your strategic priorities. We'll realign it with those. And then ultimately, we'll present it to the Board of Trustees for review, consideration, and adoption by June 30. So how are we funded? So there's 4 categories here, and I'll mention a 5th one. Transit-generated revenue is our fare revenue, and those are the fares that ultimately will be set by the organization. Local funding, we touched on that tonight. That is great news that by starting that early on, by getting it day one, that's a huge impact on our budget, being able to get those revenues in starting July 1. So we've got our sales taxes. Article 43 is the half-cent that existed. Article 34 is the 1 cent that was adopted. And also now the You Drive It tax, which did go to the city and then funded CATS, now comes directly to us. State funding predominantly here is through state grants that we may get. They may be matching in nature. They also give us annual maintenance monies, around $9 million. We get those every year that come in from the state. And then, of course, federal funding, which is broadly in 2 types of grants. Formulaic grants, in that we get those every year as part of being a transit agency, as long as we meet certain requirements. And then competitive grants, also called discretionary grants, that we have to apply for. So the grant we talked about earlier was a discretionary one that we applied for. And there's a whole process for that. Again, that's, in many cases, applying for a grant like that is a whole of organization effort to make sure that it is a very well thought out and put together application so that we get those. And we've been very successful in getting those. Our budget components. So talked about the revenues. So on the other side of the coin is our operating budget, which is, and we'll touch on these more in some later slides. Our operating budget is our day-to-day budget. It's paying our people. It's small types of maintenance. It's all the administration and support, IT, HR, finance, procurement, those functions. Our capital budget, again, this is buying and building large things. It's also any type of maintenance. So I know you're going to hear about maintenance in both buckets. Maintenance in the capital bucket typically is maintenance that's substantial enough that it extends the life of something. So think of it as I'm fixing a light fixture is routine maintenance, but I'm repairing the roof of a building. That's capital maintenance because you're extending the life of the building, holding, with a few exceptions to those things. Now, operating budget. Again, it's the expenses to run the transit service day to day. For example, labor costs is the wages and benefits, vehicle facility maintenance costs, fuel, electricity, parts and items for the buses. Non-labor operating costs, these are contracts for service, specialty contracts. Also insurance and liability. And insurance with a transit agency is unique by the rail. The rail insurance is actually handled out of London. It is not something that's typically handled within the states. And so that is very interesting that we have that is unique to the transit industry. Lloyd's of London, they've been in the news lately talking about the conflict in the Persian Gulf. They also not just insure ships, they're also part of the group that leads the transit insurance, rail insurance. And then again, administrative and overhead costs, people, the different functions that we have that support the operations part of the organization. Capital budgeting, again, it's part of a 5-year capital program. We routinely have assets that are 10 to 20 years or longer with a life. FTA's priority, and you'll hear this a lot, I think it's one of the ones that we define it in the back, is maintain state of good repair. The easiest way for me, being a non-operations person, to think of that is you have a book that says you should maintain something in a certain way. When you bought the piece of equipment, we gave you a book. Are you maintaining it in that fashion? And that can be with rail cars, it's so many miles. There's so many, I think 300, 600,000 miles, and then there's midlife, and all of those combined are state of good repair. And we have to make sure we stay on top of that, and we have a good amount of funding to make sure that we do. Capital program priorities. So again, we're really looking at kind of our budgets up to this point here. So would some of these change as we present going forward? There'll be some subtle changes with the new money that was approved. You'll see that in a later slide. But basically, it has been fleet replacement, facility upgrades, ADA improvements to not only our facilities but to our bus stops, improving rail infrastructure, and then all the technology systems that are necessary to make all of the other happen. Our operating budget, kind of not deep dive, but we'll call it mid dive this. I'm going to simplify this a little bit, even though 4 short bullet points. One of the things, and this is true across both our operating and our capital budgets. The most important things, our strategic priorities, we may have worded them differently in the last few years, can be broken down into 3 things: people, safety and security, and maintaining our assets. And that's both people is both our riders and our staff. The safety and security of both our riders and our staff and our facilities, and maintaining the assets that we have, whether they're something simple, rail car, buses, or our facilities. Those have been our focus since 2023 and will continue to be a focus as we add on other items with the transit system plan as we move forward. And you'll see those across both the operating and the capital budgets. So I said there'd be some slides and charts. So you'll see a lot of these as we come up. So this is how our budget looks if you take it one level down from the broad categories, both on the revenue side. So these are some of the different items that make those up and kind of the percentages of them. And the expenses, and here you can see the biggest expense the biggest single expense is our people, then maintenance. Safety and security and contract services are always up there as well. And you'll continue to see this as we work on developing the budget to bring forward. And again, you can actually see how those kind of stack up to what I just said, because it's never far from any staff that the main things we're going to focus on are people, security, and our assets. So this is the Article 43 sales tax going back a few years. The top number, so the top of the bar graph would be the actual collections for FY through FY25, our projections through 26 and going forward. And the light blue, Carolina blue line, for those that are Tar Heel fans, is really what's called our trend line. And we have a trend line that based on, so that we don't, so it's our way of accounting for fluctuations in the market. The difference between those two numbers, so if you look at 2026 year, our projection, roughly 165 million is what we'll take in. 155 million is what we're planning to devote to be it capital, debt service, or operations. The difference is we're planning to put that into reserve for future years. And again, so it makes sure that we're not as subject to some of the fluctuations in the market that may be there. These numbers we refresh these numbers every year. We refresh them throughout the year as needed. The city's economist contributes to that. And so that's something that we would continue to work with them on as we move forward. And again, you would see very similar, what we'll be putting together would show probably both sales taxes together, and you would see a similar type of graph for that in the upcoming budget. I think this has been brought up before about the years that we have left on the existing debt that we have. So this are some certificates of participation that we have for the blue line. And these are our debt payments. So each year is around $18 million going out to 2034. Then it's $14 million and ultimately a little over $8 million. So we have debt that we're paying down, just like I have a mortgage on my house, all the way out to 2048. And so by statute, these are the first things that we have to budget for and pay, even before people, then people. And so we account for this. It's part of our budget. You'll see the flow, how it flows through our budget as we go forward. If we were to issue, or when it's time to issue new debt, again, that would add on top of this, and then we would have a combined debt service payment for the principal and interest going forward. Our capital budget, again, it's just more of the long-term assets and our infrastructure. I'm going to simplify this again and say, again, we continue to focus on, even though it's on the capital side, people, safety and security, and the maintenance of our assets, state of good repair of our assets. Another chart. Again, revenues here are a little more simplified. Typically, they are in PAYGO, which is pay-as-you-go funds. Those are funds that are local in nature, so it's us paying a piece of our capital program. Federal grants, state grants or aid, and then as needed, we would issue new debt. This is from last year, so we did not end up having to issue debt this year. We had planned for it just in case we needed to. But here we were limited to COPS. Going forward, because of the PAVE Act, we would both be able to look at using certificates of participation, which think of it as, for those that may not know, a certificate of participation is usually for a specific thing. Let's say this pen's a very expensive pen, and if you don't pay it, they're able to come take the pen as collateral. The other type of debt we'll issue will be revenue bonds, and that's usually issued for a category of items. It could be issued for rail improvements, bus improvements, different types of, probably not bus, but rail improvements, facility improvements, and what will back that will actually be the sales tax. We could not use the sales tax before to back our debt, and so we can with the PAVE Act, and I think that will simplify, particularly as we get into the out years and we're in a large capital program that's repeating every year. That will make things a lot easier on everyone. Adoption process, and I know we're slowly still working through this. So over the next few months, we will be previewing the budget with this body, with the MTC, potentially with PTAC, and with City Council.
1 second.
Yes, sir.
If you would pay attention to this slide, please, because this is what we have to do over the next couple of months. All right? Okay, go on, Brett.
Thank you, sir. Yes, absolutely. This will become, the dates on here, June will come before you realize it. I've been through a few of these. So obviously tonight, the 24th will be a workshop where we actually start getting more into the details of the coming budgets, not just kind of looking back. 25th of March is MTC business meeting. And also, I know now that the committees have been appointed, we'll be working to get some budget and finance and executive committee meetings scheduled to begin talking through the 27 operating and 27 through 31 capital budgets as soon as we can. April, I'll hurry up and get through this because it's here for everybody to see. Happy to spend more time on it if needed, but April we begin to review it with council. Back to PTAC, coming back to this this group and the MTC. May, a couple things to look at here. Typically, CATS being a part of the city, we're a part of the city's only budget adoption process and ordinance. This year, there will be both and you'll see it on the 13th here, the MPTA budget public hearing. We'll have this body will have a public hearing on the budget, and then the budget approval will be June 10th of 26, so that the budget can start effective July 1 of 26. Don't have numbers yet. They're very close. We're fine-tuning those now. But broadly, again, some things that we're going to touch on, and you can look at this as sort of this is kind of a word problem. Current service level plus the TSP implementation organizational capacity plus transition expenses is going to equal your 27 budget. Each part will have an operating and a capital piece to it. Even the transition will have a capital piece to it, and some of the technology stuff particularly. But we will certainly go through this in detail. Both myself, my team will be available, and then, of course, we can rely on other CAT staff as needed to get into some of the details if needed there. And I appreciate your time, appreciate you allowing me to speak where y'all ate, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to take those.
The hands. So I got.
Thank you for your presentation. Going back to slide 13, the
Mike, I do want to make a couple of comments real quick. I do want to make sure that you guys understand the reason why I asked you to stop to make sure you look at that screen, because we are inserted into the budget process right now. Because that means that I asked Brent while he was talking, how much do these budgets increase with the tax? Over the next year or so, these budgets double. So we take over that budget in the middle of the year sometime. So that's why I want to make sure we get ready. The new Finance and Audit Committee, you guys are kind of first up to bat with trying to get us through this process. This process is going to include us working with MTC and working with City Council. I think we're going to mimic their processes. We're still talking through what that looks like. But just know that this is the first big thing that we do that we actually have to vote on. So with that said, Mr. Bryant's first. What you got, Clayton? Give them all to
I
me.
had Mike, Corinne, and then
keep a score.
And Corinne and
Alicia.
Got it. All right, let's go with that order. Thank you.
I just have two questions. Thanks again for the presentation. On the revenue side, the 2% fund balance, what is the total fund balance that we have?
Our total fund balance right now at the end of FY25 across all of our different funds was about $223 million.
And is there a recommended level that you try to manage to maintain?
$130 million.
$130 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we are revisiting that as well, again, to look at with new money coming in, new expenses, does that need to be reevaluated? That would be part of what this we'll be looking at when we come back to this group with our strategic financial policy, which is one of the things that's required by the PAVAC by July 1.
Okay.
One thing on the reserve, there is $30 million, of the $130 million that is the requirement, $30 million of that is a debt service reserve fund associated with the debt that Mr. Howell mentioned. So that is a reserve, but it is specific to the debt. The $100 million is what we would call an operating reserve, a rainy day fund, to ensure that if revenues fluctuate, we have the capacity to continue service without having to resort to drastic changes in service. We have time to plan for that. And then the balance of that is just additional fund reserve to help as we go down the road of a very aggressive capital program. The amount we have, or that we recommend to have, will absolutely change as the revenues significantly increase and as the debt service and capital expenses increase. And so again, that'll be part of the financial policies and for the Finance Committee to take up as consideration for policy.
And that debt service fund, does it comprise of the PAYGO fund you mentioned, or is that separate?
It is separate.
And is it comprised of sales tax?
The
fund?
debt service reserve fund?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
All right.
All of the reserves are Article 43 local sales tax funds.
All right.
The trend, the difference, the monies that go into that revenue reserve fund are the difference between the trend line and the other sales tax. That's what's programmed to go in every year.
All right. And then my last question, just to add context for the capital budget, what is the standard that we manage to in terms of replacing our buses? Mileage, years, just to kind of help understand what.
Yeah, so the FTA, so it's a twofold answer. The FTA has a specification for buses that they have a useful life of 12 years. So that's not hard and fast. That doesn't mean that when it becomes 12 years old, it must be replaced. But what you would want to do is have average fleet age somewhere in that, let's call it 11 to 14 year range, because of the wear and tear on those vehicles as they get up into that age.
Are we floating around that average?
We are, back in 22, 23, we were not. There had been deferred replacements for many years, so we have over the last 3 years been replacing out those oldest vehicles to bring that down, that average fleet age on the bus fleet.
Okay, thank you.
Reverend Mack.
Yes.
Under the budget, when you talk about labor, does that also include pensions and any FMLA cases that may come forward?
It does. Personal services is the city's way of saying salary, benefits, and retirement contributions, all of the above.
Okay. And then under sales tax 43, the Article 43 sales tax, there's it denotes it does not include grocery, food, automobiles, housing, so on and so on and so on. I just want to make sure that that's clarified so everyone understands why. It does not?
Yeah, it does not, and that again goes back to the when Article 43 was put into or became law, became part of the North Carolina General Statutes. That was the language that was there to clarify what was not to be part of it.
Those are viewed as household essential items.
No, I know the answer. I'm just saying for public consumption.
Yes, ma'am. It's also important to note that this is true for Article 43 as well as the new sales tax.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Just a quick question. Thank you, Chad, for the presentation. You mentioned that the budget process starts in September and our timeline in front of us starts in March. If you could just tell us a little bit about what has happened up until now, and that's one question. The other is around the process itself, particularly there are public hearings and a couple of council meetings. Is there any other opportunity for the community to be involved in the budget process, like a town hall or something? Just piggybacking off of David's desire to be out in the public more. Can we use this process as an opportunity to potentially engage with the community around how we spend the dollars?
Yeah. So this is a dual budget process, a very unique budget year for us, for CATS. And so the work that goes in starting in September is the work of staff to monitor revenues. Are they coming in as planned? Monitor expenses. Is the money going out as planned? And to make any kind of adjustments that may be needed that were unforeseen when the budget was created. Because remember, we're setting a budget. We're in the process right now of setting a budget that doesn't start until July and won't end until June 30th of 2027. So unforeseen things happen, and that's the work that starts in September, leading us up into this point. Public engagement. There is a public hearing that is a statutory requirement. As part of the City of Charlotte's budget, the City of Charlotte also does community engagement and listening sessions on the budget. As the MPTA starts to fully adopt budgets, full-year budgets, we would fully expect that that would be part of the budget process for the MPTA as well. And so it is part of this budget process, and we would certainly recommend that it be part of future budget processes.
That all your questions?
So, I just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying that if someone has a concern or an idea about a budgetary expense, they can participate in the city's engagement process this budget cycle?
That is correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear.
That is correct.
Next up, I have Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. A good presentation. Two quick questions. The federal and state grants that I think make up 17% of Charlotte, are those annual appropriations or are those longer-term grants that we've received?
It's a combination. There's two broad types of grant. There's formulaic, and those are ones that I don't want to quite say they're evergreen because they do fluctuate a little bit, but there's formulaic type grants that we get every year, and in those, you will see as we move forward with the budget process, we're planning, my team and I are planning to have those in the budget. Then there are discretionary grants, and those are grants that we're through something that we're working on. There's an opportunity for us to apply to the feds, maybe the state for a match for that particular item. And so in that case, we would put together a packet and put in that application for the grant. We typically, at the beginning of when we're doing kind of this part of the budget process, do not include those potential discretionary grants as part of the budget. When they come in, we shift funding sources as needed. Probably a little bit more detail than you asked, but that's the way we would handle that. And then there are, for these big rail, for the Red Line, Silver Line, these big projects, there's an entire grant contract. Kelly, what's the
Full funding
grant agreement? It's bigger. Okay, just grant agreement.
Yeah, full funding grant
full
agreement.
Funding, not state, but full funding grant agreement that are signed for those, and that's its own thing.
Getting close.
Thank you.
Next, Lucia.
Yes, I've got a question on the debt. The debt is all tied to the original blue line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it expected that part of that debt will be paid with a new 1%, or is that still going to be, even though it all mingles together, is that going to be kept under the older source of funds, or will it go into the new?
Once the revenues come in, it will be total revenues, Article 43 and 34, and they will all contribute to paying total expenses, including the debt. And so, yes, the total revenues will always go towards paying that total debt service.
So I understand that concept, but I'm saying in numbers. Will the numbers really be, I guess what I'm saying is this new money coming in going to be absorbed by a lot of old debt, or not really?
No, the new money coming in will. So in future years, what you'll see, this is the debt service schedule as it is today. In future years, that debt service schedule will change as we issue new debt. And so it will grow just like the revenues grow as well.
I understand. I was trying to get a picture if we're going to be absorbing all loads with the new monies, but I get it. Thanks.
Jeff? Well, we're going to work, everybody hadn't said something and come back. So Jeff?
Julie was before me.
I'm going on what Christy said. So.
That's fine.
Sorry.
So you next.
Jeff Robbins, a couple of questions around replacement. I know the city, under their CAP program, has goals in terms of replacement of diesel-powered buses for EV and hybrid, and kind of want to understand what's the impact to the capital budget on that as kind of a first part question. The second part, I assume at some point we'll get a breakdown of the percentages of respective areas in the capital project, the things that are driven by rider experience and those types of things like shelters, stops, what is the goal in terms of percent of total capital expenditure and the growth in those areas as we look at improving rider experience?
Well, let me talk about the stops and all first. So as part of that, there is a plan there is a spending plan that goes along with the 2055 transit system plan that was adopted. And the number of stops every year and the different types of stops will depend on kind of what we can do each year, but there is a program, there's a list of the stops and the order that they'll be done, what will go there. But it is something that's funded as part of Better Bus that we start immediately in 27 and fund all the way, through all 5 years that we present. So we can provide more information on that. There is a schedule of what we plan to work on, what year, and what it would be improved to, what type of stop. For the buses, broadly, I know the numbers change each year, but diesel buses are the cheapest. Then you've got the hybrids are kind of in the middle, and battery electrics are the most expensive. Right now, the buses that we're looking at, we haven't placed an order recently, are all hybrids.
Hybrids?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So clearly there is a cost differential between a straight diesel and then a diesel hybrid and then the pure EV. The cost differential between a diesel hybrid and a pure EV is very small, but the cost differential between the pure diesel and those other two is pretty big. For us, we have about 35 battery electric buses or 100% electric buses in the fleet. We have committed to continuing to monitor that technology and buy new buses as the technology progresses. But we are also at the same time committed to refleeting and purchasing additional vehicles that the TSP needs to support Better Bus through hybrid electric vehicles. And there are reasons for that, and happy to share those if you'd like at a later time.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Julie?
Thank you. Julie Eisel, Mecklenburg County. Once this year's budget process is done, where the city council has approved it, and then we move into an operating mode where we're managing it, what kind of flexibility is there to make significant changes to the budget should this body decide that we need to accelerate security, electric buses, whatever it is? If there are, significant changes, what is that complicated legally in terms of making a change to the budget?
You can always make changes to the budget if you are saying that you want to, for example, order more buses instead of in January of 2027, you want to order those buses in July. That's not as big a deal because it's all in the same fiscal year. If you were moving in just totally new dollars to the fiscal year, that would be, there would be a process for that. But the secondary part of that is it would also have to pass financial feasibility, right? There is a legal process for amending the budget or increasing the appropriation, but you still have the legal requirements to have a balanced budget. And so you run into you may run into fiscal constraints associated with the revenue flows and how quickly they're coming in versus the expenditure flows and how quickly they're going out.
And I understand that. I think I was thinking more in line along the lines of, because one body approved the budget and now another body is managing the budget.
Yeah, we anticipate the
Yes. Listen, I appreciate the answer. I think I know where you're going, Julie, and I'd say we have debt commitments.
Yeah.
We have pension plan retirement obligation commitments that we're bound to, and things like that. After that, yeah, I think we would have liberties for changes, but we always have to be constrained by those commitments we've
Okay.
already made as a board for big picture changes, as I think you're talking about in terms of scope changes.
And what comes to mind for me is add delete. If you take something, you got to delete something in a budget year, so we got to be careful of that. I think you were wondering if there's going to be extra money, and I think they're going to budget for what they think is going to come in. So I don't think there'll be extra money unless something comes in extra in the sales tax in this first year that we didn't anticipate.
Right, no. I'm just meaning operationally, because we're not the ones that voted on that.
That's why that's that opening statement I made about us trying to mimic, co-do, I don't know what the right word is in this process, for having our finance team sit with the city council and MTC so that it's a joint, something we can all feel good about. And we're still working through what that looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Who's next? Anthony Manzi.
Thank you. Somewhat similar to Julie's question, and I think we've all kind of hinted around this, but can you talk about how the budget process and the strategic priority process kind of coincide time-wise? So we have some sense of when will we be working on and talking about what are the strategic priorities for the given fiscal year compared to the budget process for the given fiscal year?
I can, in prior experience, when I was with another city department, and we developed our strategic plan first, right? And then didn't have report to a body like this, but the strategic plan, which is typically a multi-year document, was developed first with an eye to it being something that would last for a number of years. And then the budget is designed each year to kind of tie back to those goals that are set. So you would start with that in mind when the budget started. And that's the point where in the, presentation where I said the staff kind of does the handoff to the CEO. The CEO and senior leadership are the ones that are checking kind of as we go along the way to make sure we're staying consistent with that adopted strategic plan. So that would be if there was an adopted strategic plan or strategic priorities.
So is it fair for me to assume that right now what we're calling our strategic plan is our TSP, is our transit system plan? Is it fair to say that that's kind of what we're working off of?
That is correct, as well as other documents. The transit system plan talks about service and increases to service or how we enhance services. The transit security plan, as an example, talks about what enhancements we will make into the future related to passenger security and operator security. So there are several plans. To try to put a finer point on your question, though, generally what I would anticipate is sometime in the first quarter or early second quarter of the fiscal year, I would think that the MPTA would do priority and goal setting or visioning strategic conversations, and then possibly revisit those as we roll into the January timeframe. That then coincides with the budget. As Mr. Howell said, his team is starting to look at revenues and expenses early on in the year in that September timeframe. The budget is really starting to come together, and we have greater certainty as to what revenues and expenses look like in the current year and are able to more accurately forecast for the next year sometime in the January timeframe. So I think those are sort of the two times where start the vision, first quarter, confirm or reconfirm along with the better projection in that third quarter of the fiscal year. So September, October to September to January, something like that.
And a little finer point, because so typically we'll have a budget kickoff. The budget manager and budget team will have a budget kickoff within the organization to start the year around September. If we have strategic goals or strategic priorities, we can put those out at that point, and the budget process can start from there. Now, if we don't, we'll work toward broader goals, the things Mr. Cagle touched on. But if we have more specific targets or more specific goals from the MPTA, we can incorporate those from day one or very early on into the budget process so that it's aligning from the very beginning.
So it sounds like also that what we'll be doing is come, let's call it July 2nd, we're going to end up with some kind of interlocal agreement with the city where we adopt the city's budget that's been approved. And we take on that budget for the coming fiscal year. And during that fiscal year term, sometime in the September or so timeframe, we would be starting to talk about strategic priorities for the next fiscal year. Is that kind of what you're imagining now?
That sounds about like what we've been talking about, except it may be opposite. They may be adopting our budget. So we don't know how that's going to work just yet.
That's really what the question is, because we're saying right now, they have to approve a budget by June 30.
As well as this body will need to do that as well.
Yeah. So.
It's a shared budget. We will be working together on this.
Okay. So both of us are going to own the budget, is what it sounds
Yes,
like. Correct.
That's what I opened up saying.
Your first exclusive budget, if you will, true, clean, pure, 100% MPTA starts July 1st, 2027.
FY 28.
FY 28.
So again, if the approval process is that the city adopts their budget, which would be the city budget, but it will also include the CAT's budget as well, right? They have a bigger budget. This will be an enterprise fund under that budget, right?
Correct.
But then we will also adopt that same budget as our entire budget. Is that?
To the extent it applies to CATs, not the, yes, so the CATs piece of the city budget would also be the MPTA's.
I didn't want to complicate that, but there'll be a transition budget too.
And keep in mind, our budget relates entirely to Article 43 money, the half-cent sales tax, and eventually the Article 34 money coming in. So from the city's perspective, it's all sales tax money designated for transit. They're not thinking about we're going into their operating funds for other city business.
Right. My expectation was that when the budget that we adopt will include both 43 and 34.
Correct.
Article 43.
Theirs will too. Theirs will too.
Yes, we will have the same budget.
Theirs will too.
Yes, there.
Reverend Matt.
I wanted to go back to the community engagement portion. In light of the fact that there may be ridership that does not have the ability to come into the city or meet us for a meeting, are we thinking about ensuring that somewhere in the budget we have funds to go directly into those impacted communities? And if not, are we thinking about giving some portion of free ridership or half ridership or something to ensure that those folks who may not economically have the ability to have an additional ride in the course of a day, to give them an opportunity to have a voice in these conversations?
So I think the real answer to that is this year, because it's the city councils, we're going to mimic it, and whatever they do for public engagement, we'll do. Going forward, we get a chance to change that in the next budget year. I did just ask him about your idea about free rides, and I think that's something that is probably creative that he could even do in this process.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. That was actually a good point. Christy, anybody else? Okay.
Peter.
Wyatt?
Peter.
Peter.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. I don't see a contingency in the budget. Is that covered in miscellaneous or reserve?
I am sorry, sir, can you repeat that question?
Is there a contingency line item in the budget?
So there is not a contingency line item in the budget, but the cash reserve or the rainy day fund serves as that. And then if it's needed, an additional appropriation can be made as needed for the contingency.
How much is in that fund?
Roughly $225 million. Mr. Howell is a stickler for details when it comes to numbers. So, Mr. Howell, please.
That's it.
Let me know.
But Peter, some of that's reserved for debt covenants and things.
30 million of it.
30 out of the 225
Yes, sir.
is reserved for debt covenants.
Correct.
Wyatt, is there anyone else?
No, I've had my hand up since the third person.
I thought you were helping
So,
me.
no, yeah. Anyway, so, my question, so like 20% of the world's oil is currently hung up in the Strait of Hormuz. Happen to notice the amount of percentage here that's on motor oils and lubricants. I'd love to know a little more information about our fuel contracts, when they come up, how they account for fluctuation. And also looking at the graph on 13, a little confused by some of the numbers. I see maintenance down here under security. I'm also interested in getting a full picture of what it looks like for the cost of maintaining service, not just maintenance, but maintaining service, and like what that looks like. But I'll start with fuel first.
Yeah, and I think probably we can get you some additional information, but basically we have fuel hedging contracts. So right now, we're still under a contract, so that's not impacted by any changes that we're experiencing because of the situation with Iran. That we're looking to renew that. We were working with the company to renew it prior to that. So right now, we're working to see when the price comes down, and we can lock it in for another year or period of time, if needed, if it works for us. So we typically have long-term contracts on those, and we always have for their fuel. For the other, yes, we can work as we go through the budget, we can work to put it into different ways or talk about it in ways that would be more in line with what folks would want to see. So the maintenance here is operation. It's referring to operational maintenance, and so it's the small type of maintenance, like you're working, you would be working on your car or your house type of maintenance, not massive redos of, buildings or roofs or huge equipment replacements like that.
Thank you for your answer, and I really appreciate how you use different anecdotes to explain things. It's really helpful.
I try, because my nature of this stuff can be fairly boring, so I try not to be boring.
I love it.
Everything's done good except that Carolina thing. There's some Duke people in here not happy about that. Wyatt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question kind of dovetails into what Clayton was just asking, in that public budgeting is a whole different process for those of us that live in the private sector. And so one of the things that would be helpful to me is understanding the key performance metrics that sort of live and breathe in this environment in terms of what I would call it industry standards, but that's not necessarily relevant. But I mean, as a kind of silly example I made up, I looked at our, the fiscal 2026 operating budget, and look, the expenses are $289 million roughly, and if I recall, our ridership projection was about 16 million across all providers, rail, bus, et cetera. So that came to me to effectively our cost, the expense per trip is roughly $18. And that may be, it's out in left field, I realize, but having almost a cheat sheet to help us be better prepared to provide intelligent input as part of this process would be great.
Christy called it a placement.
We have a whole process. We can certainly provide that.
Who else I got?
I didn't see anybody else. Clayton.
All right. All right. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, I think we're going to have our first closed session. So I'm going to read this into the minutes, just so that we're clear. I need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3, 5, and 6 to consult with the board's counsel, establish the board's position on an employment contract and consider personnel matters, and designate Robinson Bradshaw to prepare and maintain minutes and a general account of the closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Did you get those? Okay. It's been probably moved in second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. We're going to do a recess for 5 minutes so we can get everything straightened out, and then we'll come right back. Thank you.